Making headlines for this week of September 15th, Bitcoin battles. China seeks to regulate altcoin exchanges and ICOs as criminal profit takers attempt to benefit. Solving Syria. Daesh problem in this country coming to an end as last city is recaptured by Syrian forces. Moving East. Economic Forum promotes industry and youth for future development in Russian Far East. And shaken to the core. 2017, a year where few, if any, of our historical beliefs systems may remain intact.
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Greetings and blessings to all. Movements in the area of geoeconomics continue to affirm that significant changes are happening on multiple levels, and yet also are directly and indirectly connected to other events happening on political, social, and on levels that are still not fully understood by so many. So much has been going on since I reported on the fork event relating to Bitcoin before going on vacation. Now, before I continue, I have to note that the information I thought I knew about that fork event may not have been wholly correct. I thought I understood it better than I actually did, so I apologize for this. It was mostly correct, but there were some details that could have been more accurate. This, however, is not so relevant any longer. Here is what is unfolding as I currently think I understand it at this time. Reports given to me by a knowledgeable friend suggest that the event that I reported as a fork relating to segmented witness was successful. There was very little activity related to this event that appeared in the price of Bitcoin. In other words, the price did not fluctuate dramatically, although there were some fluctuations. Another event, however, is taking place, an event that appears to be misreported by the Western media and also misunderstood by many Western Bitcoin buyers and traders, and this has affected the price to varying degrees over the last week to 10 days. As followers of Bitcoin will know, China recently began a crackdown on something called Initial Coin Offerings, or ICOs. To explain this simply, most people have heard about companies doing IPOs, or initial public offerings. The company begins to offer shares in that company to the general public. This is basically the same thing. Knowledgeable people are using the current wave of Bitcoin interest to create their own currencies, and they are attempting to draw people into their coin offerings. What is difficult, or perhaps even impossible to know at this point, is whether the people offering these ICOs are genuine, or whether they are going to take in the money and then disappear. According to sources around me, this is what China has been attempting to take on over the last few weeks. As I have reported over the last year especially, Russia and China have been leading the way in laying the foundation for a new global economy. This has been the result of several strategic moves. 1. Creating their own domestic and international money transfer systems to compete with the US-based SWIFT system of money transfer. 2. Creating their own international development banks to lend money on their own terms instead of terms dictated by a criminally corrupt group of Western bankers. 3. Buying up and stockpiling massive amounts of gold using revenue from the sales of U.S. Treasury debt bonds. 4. Entering into trading agreements that do not use the U.S. dollar as the median currency for trade. This has eliminated the stealing of money through foreign exchange price fixing. 5. China's opening of its own gold exchange in Shanghai, which will give China a greater influence in setting the global price of gold. 6. The acceptance of the Chinese yuan into a basket of currencies currently overseen by the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. 7. The reports that China's currency has already been shifted to a gold-backed currency, a move that will lead many other countries to do the same if they wish to trade with China and participate in the Belt and Road Initiative. And finally, 8. the rapid implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative, also known as the One Belt, One Road, and also as the New Silk Road. These activities, among others, are believed to be the major reasons for why the Western media has been targeting and demonizing China and especially Russia since the Maidan Revolution in Ukraine. As it is right now, this technology we know as a blockchain has just exploded onto the global scene in an extremely short period of time. Suddenly, everyone is talking about it, and suddenly, every company, every bank, governments, social media, and others are racing to find ways to implement this technology. I will look more closely at the blockchain technology itself later in the newscast. Bitcoin was arguably the first public application of this technology. The core of this blockchain, although functional, is not fully understood by very many, if any at all. It may work, but very few, if any, truly know how the coding functions, let alone being able to crack or manipulate it. It is believed that this is what has numerous governments and other institutions controlled by this global cabal so concerned, if not scared. It represents a way to transmit information in a more secure way that so far has not been hacked. Recently, there have been reports of hacks, and my sources indicate that this has occurred in various exchanges, but not in the core technology itself. The rapid rise in the price of Bitcoin and several other prominent altcoins, such as Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, and a few others, suggests that many are now beginning to learn how to make money using this new digital economy. Unfortunately, this also includes the corrupted individuals and institutions that are a part of this global cabal entity that I report on. Russia and China have found a way to begin shutting down the corrupted Western interests using the fiat currency system. I explained this earlier. Here is what has been happening recently. A few weeks ago, China announced that they would be stopping any new initial coin offerings, as I mentioned moments ago. Some incorrectly interpreted this to mean that China was cracking down on Bitcoin. What China is now attempting to do, according to my sources, is to crack down on all potential criminals and institutions that are trying to corrupt and manipulate the Bitcoin and altcoin markets. The big crash this week in the price of Bitcoin is believed to be linked to this crackdown. My sources report that China's attempts to regulate the market will ultimately make it safer for all who are using this market in honest and sincere ways. It is believed that this is a really good time to get back into Bitcoin. An article appearing on the Coindesk.com website on September 15th offers an example. According to this article, the Bitcoin US dollar exchange rate is in free fall after Chinese Bitcoin exchange via BTC became the second exchange to shut down domestic trading amid news that more announcements are forthcoming. The bulls continued to exit the market on fears other exchanges would close down their Chinese desks. More announcements are now only likely to amplify fears and trigger further selling. In another article on the same day, China's Bitcoin and cryptocurrency exchanges have received instruction that they will need to voluntarily shut down by September 15th. According to both leaked documents and statements from local exchange executives issued on condition of anonymity, China's regulators have now issued verbal directives indicating how they expect the businesses to wind down operations due to the fact that they are operating domestically without a formal license. A document leaked on Chinese social media, translated within the article, lists a series of steps the exchanges must undergo during that closure. While not received directly by exchange executives surveyed, the document is reportedly consistent with verbal guidance. Issued by the Office of the Leading Group of Beijing Internet Financial Risks Remediation, the document outlines how exchanges will need to coordinate with local regulators following their announcements. listing how they should handle customer data and banking relationships. The document included the list of instructions. 1. Before September 20th, 6 p.m., all exchanges shall come up with a detailed risk-free clearing plan and send this plan to the office. Exchanges shall deal with their claims and liabilities properly and ensure that investors' funds and virtual currencies are safe. 2. Before September 20th, 6 p.m., exchanges shall determine a bank account which will be used for depositing user funds. All other accounts in banks and other non-bank payment service providers shall be canceled and reported to the Business Management Department of People's Bank of China. 3. Before September 15th midnight, exchanges shall publish closing announcements and announce a schedule to stop the trading of all virtual currencies. New user registration shall be stopped immediately after the announcement. 4. Shareholders, controllers, executives, and core financial and technical staff of exchanges shall cooperate fully with authorities during the clearing while staying in Beijing. 5. Exchanges shall report their developments daily to local authorities before the clearing is completed. And 6. Exchanges shall save all user trading and holding data and send it to local authorities immediately in DVDs. The document is signed from the leading group of Beijing Internet Financial Risks Remediation on September 15th. This was reported in Coindesk.com. There is already one possible example of an allegedly corrupted altcoin that was offered to the public. In a third article on the Coindesk website on September 15th, Rachel Rose O'Leary reports that the trial of Ryan Kennedy, founder of the now defunct Dogecoin exchange service in Moolah, began in the UK courts this week. According to the Sun newspaper, Kennedy, who used the name Alex Green while operating the exchange, denied 8 charges of fraud, fraudulent trading, and money laundering. Kennedy is alleged to have stolen in excess of $1.3 million in Bitcoin during 2014 in an investigation that has been led by British authorities over 3 years. In what is reportedly the first case of fraud involving cryptocurrency to be held within the UK legal system, Kennedy appeared in a Bristol court via video link from the city jail where he is currently serving time for rape. Prosecutors described the case as a very complex and sophisticated fraud, according to The Sun. The Moolah exchange was a popular platform for buying and selling Dogecoin, now the 49th largest cryptocurrency. Kennedy later purchased the exchange MintPal, which collapsed in late 2014 following growing allegations of fraud. William Suberg, in an article on the Cointelegraph website on September 15th, reported that all Chinese virtual currency exchanges must stop trading to remain compliant, regulators have announced. Information slowly appearing from China appears to confirm that trading will no longer be legal for Bitcoin to fiat currency platforms. There are a few key terms here, I believe. Remain compliant is one, and Bitcoin to fiat platforms. This would suggest that China is seeking to clamp down on individuals and institutions attempting to use Bitcoin for less than honorable purposes. But it also suggests that China's attempts to move its platforms and regulations away from the dying fiat currency system. Trading is therefore being halted for the purposes of weeding out illegal and corrupted buyers, sellers, and traders. This would appear to be a very good thing. There is this to be aware of, however. The interests that China is seeking to ban may move to another country, or another part of China, like Hong Kong, or to another country, Singapore, or possibly Japan. It is a bit of a race to see whether the new economic paradigm will win out over the attempts of the old paradigm to stay alive. And at this moment, I'm betting on the new economic paradigm. To perhaps also offer a bit more relief for those currently in Bitcoin, Joseph Young reported on September 15th that during an interview with state-owned national television network CCTV-13, Hu Bing, a researcher at the Institute of Finance and Banking, a Chinese government-supported academic research organization, claimed that the government's ban on initial coin offerings is only temporary. The Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and its Institute of Finance and Banking are affiliated with the State Council of the People's Republic of China, the chief administrative authority of the People's Republic of China. The Chinese Institute of Finance and its researchers are considered to be a government institution and government officials. In his interview with CCTV, translated by Box Mining, Bing explained that the suspension of ICOs and the government's declaration of ICOs as an illegal fundraising method are only temporary until local financial regulators introduce necessary regulatory frameworks and policies for both ICO investors and projects. More importantly, Bing emphasized that the Chinese cryptocurrency community must understand that the government has not forbidden ICOs, but instead paused them, demonstrating the government's intention to resume ICOs in the near future. Bing also noted that the Chinese government and its financial regulators are currently considering the potential of allowing ICOs to raise money in a controlled environment through a licensing program. At this immediate time, only 2 coins appear to have successfully completed this segmented witness fork. I will recap quickly what the process achieved. A Bitcoin blockchain is an electronic envelope containing a maximum of 1 megabyte of data. In the beginning, when few people were using Bitcoin, it was easy to put a certain amount of data, a transaction, into this 1 megabyte envelope. Each transaction had 3 parts: a sender address, a receiver address, and then a third part of data that is proof the funds are really there. This is called a segmented witness, and it is the part that is the most data intensive. As more and more people started using Bitcoin, this process began to slow down dramatically, costing time and money because more and more blockchains were passing through the core. A plan was developed that would not change the core, but instead would take the heaviest data, the segmented witness, and reroute this data around the core so it would not go through the core and slow things down. This results in faster times to complete transactions, and therefore also resulting in lower fees per transaction. One digital currency other than Bitcoin went through a similar fork relating to segmented witness, as I mentioned, and this is Litecoin. It went through the process and appears to have achieved it successfully as well, and the currency is still functioning on numerous trading platforms. At this moment, my best recommendations, if one is considering getting into altcoins, are Bitcoin and Litecoin. There may be others, but these are the ones I'm most familiar with right now. I realize others will strongly recommend Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and several others. I personally do not trust the sources of these coins just yet. You will have to choose for yourself, however. The sources that have guided me thus far have given me enough faith in trusting Bitcoin and Litecoin. If you choose to play with other coins, I would suggest using very small amounts that you can afford to lose. I have personally signed up for 6 exchange trading platforms in different parts of the world. Over the coming weeks and months, I hope to be able to share bits of information I am learning about the various exchanges. I hope to be able to make certain recommendations for certain markets. There are 2 exchanges that I am having issues with at the moment, so I will not report on these at this time. In an update to this particular story, as of September the 19th, the price of Bitcoin has begun rising again, and for those who have been following it, and this would suggest that confidence is beginning to return back to the actions that the Chinese government took a few days ago. In Syria this week, things appear to be getting better while more information continues to come out, proving U.S. involvement in the attempted regime change in that country. The latest is this, from Adam Gary of the Duran, and he reported the following on September the 9th. With the assistance of the Russian Aerospace Force, the Syrian Arab Army has broken the 3-year-long Daesh siege of the Syrian city of Deir ez-Zor, as food, medicine, and aid now flow into the region. Since then, Russia has confirmed the death of the self-proclaimed ISIS or Daesh emir leader of Deir ez-Zor, along with 40 ISIS-Daesh leaders who all perished when Russian aerospace forces destroyed their underground lair on the outskirts of Deir ez-Zor city. Today, news came in that the Syrian Arab Army is now in control of Deir ez-Zor's military airport, which Daesh has occupied for 3 years. The rapid advance of the Syrian Arab Army in what was the last major Daesh stronghold in Syria means that the conflict in Syria is closer than ever before to being declared over and won by the Syrian Arab Republic. This is not new knowledge for any of us. More are beginning to question the official U.S. narrative of events, however, in light of recent reports of helicopters evacuating Daesh militants from the Syrian city. The article quotes retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Karen Kwiatkowski as saying that, "Certainly we are rescuing our allies, but to some extent we are preserving people who have worked with us, people that are dealing with the financial aspects of our aid to Daesh, because that's what's going to be looked at in the autopsy of this operation. People are going to be saying, where did the money flow? Who knew about it? What was the American role?" Americans will be asking that question too, not just the world. Gary closes with the following observation. The picture this paints is that the CIA is still covertly aiding terrorists, including Daesh, at the same time as Syria and Russia cooperate in inflicting seismic defeats on the group. This reality was insultingly denied by Barack Obama's Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter, who earlier this year said that Russia is doing nothing to fight Daesh. Joe Quinn, in an article appearing on globalresearch.ca, noted on September 8th that as Russia liberates Syria from Daesh, America saves Daesh from Russia, and the Western media ignores it all. Quinn notes the actions of the Western media. He writes, "It may have escaped your notice, but over the course of the last 2 years, the Western media and Western governments have consistently ignored or criticized the victories of the Syrian army backed by the Russian air campaign. This is, of course, not surprising, given that Daesh is nothing more than a U.S. and Gulf state proxy army, specifically designed to wage war on the Syrian people, destroy Syria as a nation, and remake it in the West's image of a vassal of empire. On the occasions that the Western press saw fit to comment on the achievements of the Syrian and Russian militaries, they chose to cynically condemn them as Russian aggression or Assad killing his own people. This week's liberation of Deir ez-Zor is a case in point. While there have been no specific condemnations, you'll find it difficult to find even one American mainstream media outlet report on the most recent news that a Russian airstrike on an underground command center near the city killed 40 Daesh members, including 4 field commanders. Among the senior militants killed is internationally wanted Abu Muhammad al-Shimali, the self-proclaimed emir of Deir ez-Zor. Al-Shimali is an Iraqi-born Saudi citizen, formerly connected to al-Qaeda, and moved to support Daesh in 2015. He was paid to smuggle in fighters on behalf of the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. He was declared a high-profile target by both the U.S. State Department and European intelligence, and the EU intelligence body also claimed his involvement in various attacks in Paris. Gary notes how France has stayed quiet and not even congratulated Russia and Syria on this achievement. Gary writes that they have nothing to say. In fact, they are probably having a hard time controlling their urge to scream bloody murder that Russia just killed some of their favorite assets. There is a good reason for them to remain silent, because another high-profile Daesh commander was also killed in the same compound. Gary adds the following. Gulmurad Kalimov, a Tajik and Islamist military commander who defected to Daesh in 2015 after he had received years of training in the USA through the U.S. State Department's Diplomatic Security Anti-Terrorism Assistant Program. After so-called defecting, Kalimov said that he planned to return home to establish Sharia law in his Central Asian nation and take jihad to Russia. What a coincidence! Of course, the Pentagon and CIA are no strangers to spending billions of U.S. taxpayers' money on training and arming jihadis. There is also the little matter of the claim by an unnamed diplomatic source that at least a dozen Daesh field commanders, including 2 of European origin, were evacuated from Deir ez-Zor by a U.S. Air Force plane at the end of August, when it became clear the city would fall to the Syrian army. So it appears that the U.S. has failed in at least 2 ways. The first, bringing down Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and the second is the attempt to break up Syria and create an official Kurdish state homeland. Meanwhile, RT was reporting on September 16th that Iranian Revolutionary Guard operatives managed to infiltrate U.S. military command centers and obtain documents allegedly proving collusion between Washington and Daesh terrorists in the region, a top Iranian commander claims. The claim was made by IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Brigadier General Amir Ali Hajizadeh in a Friday interview. We have documents showing the behavior of the Americans in Iraq and Syria. We know what the Americans did there, what they neglected, and how they supported Daesh, Press TV cited the commander as saying. If the IRGC receives the green light to release the documents, it would bring more scandals for the U.S., he said. In light of this development, we now wait to see how this will play out as a consequence of this defeat against certain factions within the U.S. seeking to maintain U.S. hegemony in the world. As challenging as it is going to be for many, we need to be reminded that this group that is referred to as the global cabal is still a part of us. It is the shadow aspect of ourselves that requires healing. We, and I include myself, can sit here and comment all we want on events that we do not even know are factual and true. We can claim that we are awakened and informed, and to a degree this may be true when compared to others. We cannot judge them, however, because we are all complicit in allowing these global events to happen. We have had choices to use our knowledge to create something more, and yet so many of us have not done so, and I again include myself in this. We may not be able to change much on some levels, but we have the ability to make new choices in how we live, how we create, and how we put into practice this new world we are claiming. These are the energetic seeds that help to erode the power and control of our global enslavers. We create the opportunities and projects that can unite and connect more and more people to empower the groups and communities that will become the foundation for change in our world. In other financial news, for those who are interested in the world of finance, the emphasis is going to continue to be placed upon Eurasia, but Asia in particular. As we heard at the beginning of the newscast, the Western media continues to stir up issues relating to Russia and China, while also not addressing some of the very key changes and implementations that are reshaping the geoeconomic reality that we currently think we know. While the Western media continues to mostly ignore the Belt and Road Initiative, very little attention was given to the annual Eastern Economic Forum, the EEF, held in Vladivostok, Russia, on September 6th and 7th. The Forum Vostok.ru website describes the forum this way. The The purpose of the EEF 2017 exhibitions is to attract investors into Russia's Far East. The EEF 2017 exhibition space presents specific, advanced, special socioeconomic zones, investment projects, and measures taken by the federal and regional authorities to develop the socioeconomic, demographic, and investment potential of the Far Eastern Federal District. The plenary session theme was The Russian Far East, Creating a New Reality, and the forum overall included a vast range of topics, presentations, and discussions highlighting Russia's contribution and participation in the development of stronger relations with Asian and Southeast Asian countries as the new Belt and Road Initiative continues to be developed. The forum this year included several key business dialogues between Russia and the following countries: India, China, Japan, the Republic of Korea, as well as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. According to one Sputnik News article, over 4,200 people from around the world attended the event, suggesting that people are still actively involved and interested in doing business with Russia and Asia, despite what is being reported in the Western media. Reading between the lines, the hint is that a developing global economy is continuing. Recognizing that the youth of today are holding many of the keys for the future, the forum also launched a youth program dedicated to the development of Russian Far East. Sputnik News reported on September 5th that the youth platform, called the Russian Far East, Working with Young People to Accelerate Development, will be held at the EEF for the first time. According to the forum's website, the platform's aim is to engage young people under the age of 35 in matters related to the development of Russia's Far Eastern Federal District. The presentation of the platform will be preceded by the Youth Enterprise Forum, called A Point of Attraction, the Russian Far East, as well as by the Master Class by the Russian Export Center. The youth program is expected to gather 400 participants from Russia's Far East regions, students, young entrepreneurs, and youth leaders. A new friend of mine has indicated that there are many eco-communities rising up in Russia based on a series of books by Vladimir Megre. Some know this series as Anastasia, and others as the Ringing Cedars. The series has become very popular, and it is also very possible that the youth of the Russian Federation, embracing the homesteading values outlined in these books, could form the foundation for living in Russia's Far East. CVN has long been reporting on the demise of the US dollar as a global reserve currency. According to an article by John Rubino appearing on Zero Hedge from September 16th, the move away from the US dollar is now a thing, meaning that it is becoming more popularly accepted. Rubino writes that for what seems like decades, other countries have been tiptoeing away from their dependence on the US dollar. China, Russia, and India have cut deals in which they agree to accept each other's currencies for bilateral trade, while Europe obviously designed the euro to be a reserve asset and international medium of exchange. These were challenges to the dollar's dominance, but they weren't mortal threats. What's happening lately, however, is a lot more serious. It even has an ominous-sounding name: de-dollarization. Rubino quotes F. William Engdahl as saying the following: China, increasingly backed by Russia, the two great Eurasian nations, are taking decisive steps to create a very viable alternative to the tyranny of the US dollar over world trade and finance. Wall Street and Washington are not amused, but they are powerless to stop it. Now, ironically, two of the foreign economies that allowed the dollar an artificial life extension beyond 1989, Russia and China, are carefully unveiling that most feared alternative, a viable gold-backed international currency and potentially several similar currencies that can displace the unjust hegemonic role of the dollar today. Engdahl continues, for several years it has been known in gold markets that the largest buyers of physical gold were the central banks of China and Russia. What was not so clear was how deep a strategy they had beyond simply creating trust in the currencies amid increasing economic sanctions and bellicose words of trade war out of Washington. Now it's clear why. China and Russia, joined most likely by their major trading partner countries in the BRICS alliance, as well as their Eurasian partner countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, are about to complete the working architecture of a new monetary alternative to a dollar world. Currently, in addition to founding members China and Russia, the SCO full members include Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and most recently, India and Pakistan. This is a population of well over 3 billion people, some 42% of the entire world population, coming together in a coherent, planned, peaceful economic and political cooperation. Engdahl also makes a hint about the new Silk Road. He writes, "It's clear that the economic diplomacy of China, as of Russia and her Eurasian Economic Union group of countries, is very much about realization of advanced high-speed rail, ports, energy infrastructure, weaving together a vast new market that, within less than a decade at present pace, will overshadow any economic potentials in the debt-bloated, economically stagnant OECD countries of the EU and North America." What until now was vitally needed, but not clear, was a strategy to get the nations of Eurasia free from the dollar, from their vulnerability to further U.S. Treasury sanctions and financial warfare based on their dollar dependence. This is now about to happen. At the September 5th annual BRICS summit in Xiamen, China, Russian President Putin made a simple and very clear statement of the Russian view of the present economic world. He stated, "Russia shares the BRICS countries' concerns over the unfairness of the global financial and economic architecture, which does not give due regard to the growing weight of the emerging economies. We are ready to work together with our partners to promote international financial regulation reforms and to overcome the excessive domination of the limited number of reserve currencies." Rubino states the following about Engdahl. "To my knowledge, he, referring to Engdahl, has never been so explicit about currencies. Put this in context of the latest financial architecture unveiled by Beijing, and it becomes clear the world is about to enjoy new degrees of economic freedom." Another way that Russia and China may help accelerate the movement away from the US dollar is through the creation of a BRICS alliance cryptocurrency. Adam Gary, in an article on the Duran website on September 7th, reported that the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Kirill Dmitriev, has stated that the BRICS may opt to create their own cryptocurrency for the purposes of global commerce. Gary continues, "Currently, one of the biggest issues facing cryptocurrency development is the fact that they are not backed up by any central bank. However, many also see this apparent disadvantage as a possible opportunity, particularly where unilateral dollar-based sanctions are concerned. While the US dollar remains the most popular global trading and reserve currency, this is rapidly changing. A BRICS-backed cryptocurrency may be both the proverbial dollar buster as well as a sanctions buster." In May of this year, China and Russia agreed to begin a process of trade in local currencies. Turkey and Iran have also begun steps to break away from the dollar. Even more recently, China announced that it plans to allow for oil trading in yuan, which will be convertible to gold at the Shanghai and Hong Kong International Gold Exchanges. The creation of a BRICS cryptocurrency could potentially retain the flexibility of current cryptocurrencies with the additional benefit of being backed by the leaders of a large economic trading union, which would give traders the confidence in such a currency that many existing cryptos, such as Bitcoin, are lacking. Another country that is also moving away from the US dollar is Venezuela. Venezuela is currently a prime example of a country stuck between a rock and a hard place. The rock being the US dollar that so many are saying Venezuela needs to embrace, despite what the US has done to their country politically, and the hard place, that being the courage to embrace the emerging paradigm of the East. At the moment, it appears that the East is winning. Several websites are reporting that Venezuela has now decided to list its oil prices in Chinese yuan instead of the US dollar. The U.S., perhaps hoping that its sanctions strategy would work on Venezuela, obviously did not learn the lesson from that same failed experiment on Russia. Reuters reported on September 16th that President Maduro last week said his government would shun the dollar after the United States announced sanctions that blocked certain financial dealings with Venezuela on accusations that the ruling Socialist Party is undermining democracy. So much is going on. If there is one thing we have learned from history, it is that we cannot always trust things that governments, leaders, and other institutions tell us. If there is one thing that we are beginning to remember and awaken to, is that we have more power and knowing within each one of us. And if we use this knowledge and energy wisely and put it to practical creative use instead of just sitting on the internet all day, we can begin to co-create the world we are claiming to want, thus allowing the greater shifts to occur. So many of us, currently and in the past, have been hanging on words and promises from unknown sources about currency revaluations and a global currency reset. I am not saying that these things will not occur, but what I am beginning to feel is that these events are not happening the way so many sources have predicted. Maybe I will be proven wrong, but there seems to be a pattern unfolding within the New Age movement that is eerily similar to several other mind control programs. It is this thing called waiting. I will comment on this more at the end of the newscast. In general news, followers of entertainment were given an unusual, but not so unusual anymore, reflection into the life of Jim Carrey. In a recent New York Fashion Week interview, Jim Carrey made a rare appearance and was interviewed by E! Live. According to other sources, Carrey's interview was bizarre, and Carrey literally and figuratively went in circles around the E! Live reporter, desperately attempting to make sense of what he was saying. At one point, Carrey stated that he believes icons don't exist. To some, they may say that Carrey has lost it, and perhaps an argument could be made that this could be both positive and negative, although those making this comment are mostly implying the negative meaning. However, a few days later, while attending the Toronto International Film Festival to promote his new documentary, Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond, Carrey gave this interview to Entertainment Tonight Canada.
When Man in the Moon came out, there was all this talk about the process that you went through when you became Andy Kaufman, essentially. Did you ever have it in the back of your mind back then that you wanted to share that story in this way that you're getting to do now?
Yeah, and I thought I had become Andy Kaufman, but there was no me actually at the end of it all. I realized that there was, that this character was making choices to play a character, and so that's what kind of happened, and that's what Chris found in this interview and in this footage, that there was actually a existential, not a crisis, but a discovery going on.
There's been a lot of talk in the last few days, well, today recently, about
a lot of people making sound over here.
So much of that.
That's right.
People talking about an interview that you did at New York Fashion Week, and you talked about identity, and you all these ideas. Do you think that people kind of just don't understand it, or they haven't clued in to this whole thing you're talking about of people wearing masks?
I think that we're all trying to add things to ourselves so that we can finally define ourselves, and then everybody will get us and they'll go, okay, this is what you are. And then if you actually get there, you will find it so empty that you'll realize that's really not what it's about. It's about not only just going with the flow, but it's about not taking it personal. It's like the difference between a house and my house is a world of difference, and it's the my that's the problem, you know. So you can do all this without the my involved. You know, you can do it in a way that it's not, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for, you know, for the good of everyone. It's just it's a play. It's a giant, you know, field of consciousness dancing for itself, and you're here to make me happy, and it's making itself happy. You know, it's like one soul. That's how I feel. I feel like, you know, people say, well, I have a soul. You don't have a soul. There's no you, but I feel like there is a soul, and it includes everything. And when you wake up in the morning and you feel like I'm the universe, you don't have to reach for the stars. You know, you can just let life happen and walk through the doors.
In a graduation speech from 2016, Carey is quoted as saying, "Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. How do I know this? I don't, but I'm making sound. That's the important thing. That's what I'm here to do. Sometimes I think that is the only thing that's important, really. It's just letting each other know we're here, reminding each other that we are a part of a larger self." During a recent appearance on The Jimmy Kimmel Show, the following exchange happened between Carey and Kimmel.
Life, everything good?
You know, it's so beautiful. It really is, especially when I'm absent from it.
Do you feel like you're separated from the rest of the world and what's going on?
No, not separated at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Don't get me wrong, you know, Jim Carrey is a great character, and I was lucky to get the part. But I don't think of that as me anymore.
You don't? Not at all?
Not really, no. I used to be a guy who was experiencing the world, and now I feel like the world and the universe experiencing a guy.
Does the beard have anything to do with that?
Well, here's the thing. The beard, yes. Everywhere I go, people talk about the beard. They go, what are you doing? Why are you growing a beard? Why are you growing a beard? It's like they can't really think about anything else. It's just not cohesive. There's something different about me, and it's that damn beard. And wherever I show up, it becomes the story, you know?
Right.
It's a bigger star than me at this point.
Mm-hmm. And is that good?
It has its own Twitter.
It does?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. Thank God it likes me.
Maybe it'll be president one day, you know?
Exactly. Well,
that's the first step
now, right? But yeah, it's just weird. And I always say it's the question is not why are you growing a beard? The question is, why am I growing a beard and still shaving my balls?
Carey has also been quoted as saying that, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." Alison Schiffman, writing for W Magazine on September the 11th, quoted Carey's comments about his documentary on playing Andy Kaufman. Carey said that it was about immersing myself in a character or a couple of characters so deeply that I realized that myself, Jim Carrey, was a character as well, and something I could push aside at will. He explained, "So once you know that, you go, who am I?" He is also quoted as giving the following answer: "The only way to it is to step into the river of tears and the sorrows of your life, the things that everyone is avoiding, with everything from drugs to drink to sex and gadgets, and whatever else you can distract yourself with. All of it is designed for you to never stop going and moving and, for God's sake, not feel the abyss. Don't allow yourself to feel the abandonment and pain that you've suffered. And I've done it. I'm through it. I'm sure there will be things that happen again, but I realize that by letting myself fall into it completely, that it's not to be feared. Death is not to be feared." Being CVN's anchor and playing the character of Jeffrey West is much the same. Both characters have their uniquely different and equally beautiful qualities. I have some maturity to go through, however, as I see that I have been too dependent and too attached to other things and other solutions, things that are external to me. I'm reporting on events or things that are labeled events, and I've been hoping that these events would create an outcome that would give me the support I felt I needed, or the support that I felt humanity and our planet need. As a journalist, however, having now understood better how this other aspect of ourselves, known as the global cabal, plays both sides of every conflict, I have to at least ask the question of whether Jim Carrey is truly demonstrating an example of stepping into his own personal awareness, or is he part of some Hollywood attempt to play both sides of the shifting consciousness by drawing in the so-called awakened people still looking for answers outside of themselves? Is the media beginning to shift, or are they allowing Carrey to say what he wants because it can be used in some way against us? I am choosing to create that this is not the case. I want to believe that he is truly expressing himself and that the media is now beginning to catch on. But by simply being aware of how something could be used against me, I can use this awareness to shift the outcome and create what I want to experience for myself and for humanity and our planet. Does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, all that we have labeled as separate from ourselves is still a part of each of us. Perhaps it ultimately comes down to how each of us uses whatever information we receive to apply it in service, instead of merely sharing it and patting ourselves on our backs, believing that we are more or better than those whom we feel are not serving in life-honoring ways. I think I am approaching, or have already begun, a similar process as Jim Carrey as I reflect on CVN, what it is, and who I am. This is part of the deep reflection I am currently going through right now, and I'll comment more on it in future newscasts and also in this week's Final Words. Over to some technology news now. I mentioned earlier that I would explore a bit more this new technology called a blockchain. I also mentioned earlier how the blockchain technology has been applied to the creation of Bitcoin and the altcoins that have followed. The world is now racing to understand, implement, and in some circles, perhaps control this technology. As I currently understand it, there are few people, if any, who really seem to understand what this core technology is or how it has been constructed. This begins to raise the question of where this technology came from, who created it, how was it created, and why was it created specifically in the 1 megabyte format that I spoke of earlier. According to the Investopedia website, a blockchain is a public ledger of all cryptocurrency transactions that have ever been executed. It is constantly growing as completed blocks are added to it with a new set of recordings. The blocks are added to the blockchain in a linear chronological order. Another source, however, Don and Alex Tapscott, authors of Blockchain Revolution in 2016, define a blockchain as an incorruptible digital ledger of economic transactions that can be programmed to record not just financial transactions, but virtually anything of value. The website blockgeeks.com explains a few terms a bit more. The article identifies and explains the concept of a distributed database. Picture a spreadsheet that is duplicated thousands of times across a network of computers. Then imagine that this network is designed to regularly update this spreadsheet, and you have a basic understanding of the blockchain. Information held on a blockchain exists as a shared and continually reconciled database. This is a way of using the network that has obvious benefits. The blockchain database isn't stored in any single location, meaning that the records it keeps are truly public and easily verifiable. No centralized version of this information exists for a hacker to corrupt. Hosted by millions of computers simultaneously, its data is accessible to anyone on the internet. The traditional application of this has meant that only one person can access and change a document at any one time. A blockchain opens this up. William Mugayard, a venture advisor, marketeer, strategist, and blockchain specialist, is quoted in the article as saying this: "Imagine the number of legal documents that should be used that way. Instead of passing them to each other, losing track of versions, and not being in sync with the other version, why can't all business documents become shared instead of transferred back and forth? So many types of legal contracts would be ideal for that kind of workflow. You don't need a blockchain to share documents, but the shared documents analogy is a powerful one. The article notes the durability and robustness of this new technology, writing that blockchain technology is like the internet in that it has a built-in robustness. By storing blocks of information that are identical across its network, the blockchain cannot be controlled by any single entity, nor has it a single point of failure. Bitcoin was invented in 2008, and since that time, the Bitcoin blockchain has operated without significant disruption. To date, any of the problems associated with Bitcoin have been due to hacking or mismanagement of an exchange. In other words, these problems came from bad intentions and human error, not flaws in the underlying concepts. The internet itself has proven to be durable for almost 30 years. It's a track record that bodes well for blockchain technology as it continues to be developed. A blockchain is both transparent and yet incorruptible. According to this article, the blockchain network lives in a state of consensus, one that automatically checks in with itself every 10 minutes, a kind of self-auditing ecosystem of a digital value. The network reconciles every transaction that happens in 10-minute intervals. Each group of these transactions is referred to as a block. Two important properties that result from this are transparency, because data is embedded within the network as a whole, and by definition it is public. As well, it cannot be corrupted, as mentioned moments ago. Vitalik Buterin, the inventor of Ethereum and its digital currency, is quoted as saying that a blockchain solves the problem of manipulation. When I speak about it in the West, people say they trust Google, Facebook, or their banks. But the rest of the world doesn't trust organizations and corporations that much. I mean Africa, India, the Eastern Europe, or Russia. It's not about the places where people are really rich. Blockchain's opportunities are the highest in the countries that haven't reached that level yet. A blockchain functions on a series of nodes where each node becomes an administrator. The article explains a node as being a computer connected to a blockchain network using a client that performs the task of validating and relaying transactions across the network. This is the basis for the mining of bitcoins. Computers competing for the task of mining bitcoins. The article writes that nodes are said to be mining Bitcoin, but the term is something of a misnomer. In fact, each one is competing to win Bitcoins by solving computational puzzles. Bitcoin was the raison d'être, or reason to be, of the blockchain as it was originally conceived. It's now recognized to be only the first of many potential applications of this technology. There are an estimated 700 Bitcoin-like cryptocurrencies already available. As well, a range of other potential adaptations of the original blockchain concept are currently active or in development. Blockchains, by virtue of their design, are an example of decentralized technology. The article explains. Anything that happens on it is a function of the network as a whole. Some important implications stem from this. By creating a new way to verify transactions, aspects of traditional commerce could become unnecessary. Stock market trades could become almost simultaneous on the blockchain, for instance, or it could make types of record keeping, like a land registry, fully public. And decentralization is already a reality. A global network of computers uses blockchain technology to jointly manage the database that records Bitcoin transactions. That is, Bitcoin is managed by its network and not by any one central authority. Decentralization means the network operates on a user-to-user or peer-to-peer basis. The forms of mass collaboration this makes possible are just beginning to be investigated. Security becomes another key question in addressing this technology. The article notes the following. By storing data across its network, the blockchain eliminates the risks that come with data being held centrally. Its network lacks centralized points of vulnerability that computer hackers can exploit. Today's internet has security problems that are familiar to everyone. We all rely on the username password system to protect our identity and assets online. Blockchain security methods use encryption technology. The basis for this are the so-called public and private keys. A public key, a long, randomly generated string of numbers, is a user's address on the blockchain. Bitcoins sent across the network gets recorded as belonging to that address. The private key is like a password that gives its owner access to their Bitcoin or other digital assets. Store your data on the blockchain and it is incorruptible. This is true, although protecting your digital assets will also require safeguarding of your private key by not printing it out, creating what's referred to as a paper wallet. A centralized computer network means all the data is stored at one location and fed out to multiple locations and smaller networks. A decentralized network has two or more source locations that feed out to multiple locations and smaller networks. Blockchains introduce the concept of the distributed ledger. These ledgers allow two types of users, anonymous and non-anonymous. This is laying the foundation for the future of technology and perhaps an evolution of the World Wide Web. Blockchains, allegedly, according to the article, have the potential to move us collectively forward in so many different areas, such as governance, supply chain auditing, smart contracts, crowdfunding, file storage, protection of intellectual property, neighborhood microgrids, identity management, data management, land title registrations, and more. Is all of this good? I'm not sure. I'm struggling personally to discern a balance between the technological world we know and the one that is forming and the one that we are currently addicted to, and living in a world that is more natural with some technology, and we are learning how to access the greater technologies within each of us. I'm not yet exactly sure where this line is. As we will hear in a moment, maybe all of this will be shaken to the core as well. Finally, in health-related news, in looking over the past 3 to 6 months, I am noticing the beginnings of a huge shift within me personally. For the sake of your own health, I might pray that the same is happening with all of you. One's emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual health is becoming dependent upon one's ability to integrate all the energies at this time, along with what is coming up within oneself during this intense period. I've spent years being dependent upon support that never really came. Now please do not misinterpret this. I have received some support from a few really amazing people and support in other ways from other people. However, the burden was placed on a few people and it unfortunately wasn't enough. Now perhaps this is what is leading to the shift now within me. I am feeling a stronger calling to get out and be more active, not only for my personal health, growth, and well-being, but also to reconnect with people and nature instead of hiding behind words and a computer screen. I have to start participating in more things and creating more change for me personally without being as dependent upon support that is not there. I'll be sharing more about some of the changes within me and the things I am now beginning to experience in future broadcasts. Although I knew very little before, I am realizing even more now how little I really know about what is going on. I've been attached to a world that may have contributed more to the illusion. Things are a bit different now, and maybe I'm starting to think and feel a bit more in the way Jim Carrey explained earlier. It is coming to a time to act and be, instead of just sitting at a computer screen pretending I am really in service to humanity and the planet. If we want change, we are going to have to participate more in its creation. My journalism may bring certain key insights to certain people in a certain moment of now. My journalism, however, is not me. My body is not me. I'm beginning to see a greater resistance coming up to the surface as new revelations appear before me at this time. It's very likely going to continue. In fact, it has to, for life is about change. It is never about remaining stagnant. As we learned in the movie Avatar, Eywa is the guiding force and deity of Pandora and the Na'vi. The Na'vi believe that Eywa acts to keep the ecosystem of Pandora in perfect equilibrium. It may seem that this is what we are now beginning to experience with more intense earthquakes, hurricanes, and such. Even if they are human-created, there may also be influences that either intensify or decrease the intended magnitude of such events. We read and repost information that supports our own personal truth in any moment, without knowing for sure if there really is factual information to support this truth. We use this word truth constantly and arbitrarily, and throw it around as though we truly understand what it is we are calling truth or denying as truth. Yet we are constantly allowing ourselves to be distracted from going into the only place where truth resides, and this is within oneself, and accessing the technologies that will really help us to move forward. We are having our personal world, our outer world, our entire beliefs systems shaken to the core. Carl Boudreau, whom I've mentioned on this newscast before, has posted a couple of summaries of the coming remaining months of 2017. From his Facebook page, he shared the following in August. We clearly need new ways of doing things in society. Existing global social patterns, the patterns that typically determine how events unfold in society, these patterns are heavily tainted by patriarchy, hierarchy, sexism, racism, authoritarianism, oligarchy, and all manner of inequality, injustice, unfairness, and imbalance. All of the toxic isms and tyrannies that plagued global society during the Piscean Age and before. And they still do. Just as obviously, though, people are fed up with these far too familiar varieties of injustice and unfairness. They are sick of the fact that they persist stubbornly, despite repeated, continuing efforts to eliminate them. They survive all efforts at reform. Our patience is at an end. Many seem ready to act definitively to bring about genuine and lasting change. As a practical matter, realistically, this would mean completely replacing a great many structures and patterns. Perhaps this will mean questioning and ultimately replacing the vast majority of patterns and structures presently in collective consciousness. By incorporating the defective patterns and structures of the Piscean Age into the Aquarian Age, we would just end up carrying the evils of the Piscean Age into the Aquarian Age. And right now, a great many people simply do not want to do that. Boudreau has written in the past, and it has been mentioned on this newscast, the astrological period he describes as the oligarchic alignment. This posting was from September of 2016, and a link to this will be in the show transcript. Basically, it has been an alignment of planets that have supported the duality experience that allowed certain humans to play out their roles in creating separation, control, and fear. This is coming to an end, according to Boudreau and others. Boudreau continues in his August report. The pains and discomforts of the distortions caused by the defective patterns are now very fresh in our minds also. So is the defective reasoning, social, cultural, economic, and political thinking embodied in these patterns. With all this still clear in our minds, it will be very difficult to quickly, mindlessly install old defective patterns where we need new ones or allow others to do it. The old patterns will simply not be available. Also, building new patterns from such finely ground material will require that we very carefully re-examine, rethink, resolve the issues involved. Painful memories will dramatically lessen our willingness to let old patterns be reasserted. These memories will strongly motivate us to resist efforts to reimpose and motivate us to develop and implement better ones. It will increase our determination to resist the reimposition of these old, unfair, imbalanced, and unjust patterns. We will take extra pains to avoid the faulty reasoning behind these ancient, defective patterns. This will take a lot of time and effort. The issues will have to be analyzed thoroughly. New replacement patterns will have to be slowly and carefully, painstakingly constructed from scratch. Each new pattern will have to be very carefully examined and tested for the old flaws. And this may be what is happening with China and the Bitcoin movement right now. Perhaps the best way to think about the meaning of this solar eclipse, and this is Boudreaux continuing, is with reference to the esoteric meaning of Leo. Leo governs the process by which the impulses of the ego are aligned with or supplanted by the impulses of the higher self. We should think of the patterns and structures coming out of the Piscean age as the impulses of the ego, and the patterns and structures as we are planning to create as the patterns and structures of the Aquarian age. The total solar eclipse on August 21st, then, is about aligning the structures and patterns of global society with the values embodied by the higher self. In his post for September, Boudreaux focuses on a multi-composite chart for the remaining 8 moons of 2017, the new and full moons of September, October, November, and December of 2017. Interestingly, the multi-composite chart tends to confirm and build upon the more conclusions of my previous post, and he's referring to the one that I just read. Boudreaux describes what he believes the effects will be in the alignments of the moon for the remainder of 2017. He begins to conclude with the following. We're talking about a persistent, encompassing background influence. Everything that goes on during these months will share this disruptive and transformative quality and tend to affect us all very deeply. Most of us believe that we need to change and are discouraged by the lack of change. I know that many, if not most of us, are hoping that the very difficult events of recent weeks will bring change, and we will overcome our resistance to change. This multi-composite chart, applicable to September, October, November, and December of 2017, suggests that our resistance to change will be overcome once and for all. In my view, neither the world nor our present understanding of the world is likely to survive the rest of 2017 unchanged. In many cases, that change is likely to be drastic. Few of us are likely to be able to withstand the steady onslaught of the Eris, Uranus, Pallas energies on our view of the world. My gentle guidance for all of you would be to start getting actively involved in creating community and practical knowledge, instead of relying on a computer screen to define yourself in service. You are not this computer screen. You are each more than this, and it is time to spend more time off our collective butts and getting out into nature and creating that which we are all claiming to want to experience. Your healing, your growth, and the world we want may now depend upon choices you make in this current moment of now. In this week's final words, it will be impossible to update everyone on everything that has been going on in my world in the last 2 months. I'm still trying to figure out the best and most gentle way to share it all. Recall how you felt when you began your process of awakening, and how others felt about you at that time, and how you may have felt about yourself. We have been told that the current period we are in would bring massive changes and revelations in ways that may not be comfortable for all. It would also be a period for intense personal reflection with new choices to be made. To be completely honest and transparent with everyone, I am no longer sure about everything I previously was holding as truth in my world. After 5 years of reporting what I felt was information closer to truth than the mainstream media, I'm observing that we are all still doing one thing that we were all doing 5 years ago. We are still waiting. I am reminded of a play written by Samuel Beckett in 1952, originally in French, but translated as Waiting for Godot. The play features two main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, who are awaiting the arrival of Godot, who never arrives. The play focuses on the discussion between these two characters about their lives and their interactions with three other characters. For 5 years, we have been discussing our lives, posting and sharing our opinions, beliefs, and respective truths about how we are seeing our world in the current moment of now, while waiting for Godot to arrive. Who is, or what is, Godot in our timeline, you may ask? Take your pick. Some are waiting for the return of Jesus, some for Muhammad, some for the Buddha. New Age believers are waiting for ascension. Others are waiting for something called an RV, a revaluation in specific currencies. Others are waiting for a global currency reset, and others still are waiting for a gold standard economy to be introduced. What else is there out there that we are waiting for? Many claim, as soon as I have my funds, I will help humanity and our planet. I admit, I was among those who made this claim. Some are waiting for financial projects they have started. Others are waiting for a magical solution before they start their projects for global change, while others still are waiting for a magical disclosure that will reveal our benevolent galactic families who will save us, even though under universal law they are not supposed to intervene until humanity is aware enough to ask for this intervention. We have been told that we are approaching an ascension, and many different sources seem to have their own take on how this event could happen. Multiple timelines collapsing, moving towards a magical solution that will uplift those who are allegedly within a certain vibration who can handle this shift. Others rejected us as we moved through our awakening at that time. I have reported over the years how this group that I have called the Global Cabal plays both sides of the conflicts that we have experienced over the last 100 years at least, and arguably much longer. Yet, in this oneness we all claim to believe in, we resist this group, the Cabal. We resist immigrants. We resist all that we claim we are not, while never fully accepting that we are it all. We are the poor, the immigrants, the militant police, the corrupt politicians, the bankers, lawyers, journalists, priests, judges, or others. We are those who are enslaving humanity and destroying our planet. Yet we wait, and we wait, and we wait for some kind of answer that never arrives, and we blame others while not taking responsibility for our role in creating and being it all. We are witnessing many around the world who are awakening. We are witnessing revelations that are exposing a group of people committing unprecedented crimes against humanity and our planet. We are witnessing grave suffering among humans in various man-made or natural events, and human compassion has been lacking. Our excuses range from not having money, not having time, or we do not trust sources that claim to want to help the people who need assistance. Some fall into greater fear as they witness the revelations coming out now, worrying about their retirement pensions or their savings accounts. Some fear losing their jobs to technology or to artificial intelligence, or just to immigrants who are being thrust upon various Western nations in a man-made attempt to destabilize countries around the European Union. Consistent messages from numerous sources have stated that we are close to some kind of event, although we do not know if this event will be political, financial, astrological, astrophysical, galactic, celestial, spiritual, or some combination of all of the above, or possibly even none of the above. As a journalist, and as one moving along this timeline with each of you, I have to entertain a growing possibility that much of this New Age stuff that we have been living and breathing may be part of the same PSYOP mind control program that keeps us addicted to our computers, to gurus, and to any other source, and to waiting while looking for answers and saving from external entities, instead of focusing on creating the community and the changes where it must first happen, within each one of us. What seems to be becoming more clear, at least to me personally, is that whatever is going to happen is going to have to require greater participation from each and every one of us claiming to want a better world. It is time to stop listening to messages from other sources, and I have to include my own newscast in this. Each week, I keep on reporting global events while waiting for disclosure or some kind of society-changing event, or to just receive enough financial support to keep going. Yet, I keep waiting, and we all keep waiting for something that never arrives. After much of this reflection, I was invited to stay with a good friend in Australia a little while ago, and who is now teaching me a little bit more about how to work with Bitcoin and alternative currencies so that I can attempt to look after myself. He is creating a charity garden in his city that will eventually provide food for a charity restaurant. While learning how to make money, I am now volunteering a bit at the garden and also at one of these charity restaurants. I have stated, however, that the answer lies within each and every one of us, and each soul will begin to connect to a new truth when he or she is ready for it. My reflections over the last number of weeks have revealed that I can no longer wait for answers that are not coming. If positive change is going to happen, if there is going to be some kind of ascension or financial shift in the world, I'm going to have to participate more in its creation. Instead of sitting behind a computer consistently, reporting on these events that I am no longer clear about, I'm realizing that I have to participate more directly in this change that I'm claiming to want for our world. If I'm going to be a better journalist, a better human being, and a better custodian for this planet that gives us life, I have to step up to the plate and become the example I was trying to inspire within all of you. It is for my health and my spiritual growth and service, but it is also to help me come out of this shell I have built around myself over the years. I realize I have taken on so much negativity that is impacting me personally. Of course, it does not come through so much on this newscast, but my life has been impacted in profound ways, requiring me to take greater responsibility for my healing, my own experience of this event called Ascension. Now I am meeting and serving humans who are challenged, much like myself. It is my way of returning to others the great support that a few of you have given to me over the years, and to my shamanic practitioner friend in Europe, and the friend who invited me here to help me make some much-needed change in my life. We each have choices to make, and then we have to begin living some choices that will help create the communities that we are claiming to want to live in, that will help to lift the vibrations, that will create the shift that we are all waiting for and all claiming to want. While doing more community service over the next few months at least, I'm not sure I will be able to deliver a newscast every week. I'm doing what I can to help prepare myself, and I gently encourage all of you to do the same thing. Instead of waiting for all these messengers on the internet, I'm starting to learn some practical skills, some practical survival skills, gardening, food preparation, and perhaps even home building to create community and change. Maybe you will volunteer at projects where you can serve and learn new skills instead of waiting for all these messengers. My ego has been humbled to a certain degree, and I know that I cannot be a voice that you can trust unless I am able and willing to practice what I have been empowering within you. CVN is likely going to change. although I am not exactly sure how just yet. If there are listeners who feel disappointed or angry with what I'm sharing, I can only apologize, but I cannot change the soul I am moving towards being. Perhaps maybe some of my words are triggering a response within some of you. If I am still a voice that you feel you can trust, then I gently guide you towards taking a greater responsibility in the creation of the world we are claiming to want, instead of waiting for others to deliver it or to bring the support you are claiming to want in order to share it, or to continue delivering messages of hope and anticipation of something happening tomorrow, this weekend, next week, or next month. If one of those miracles happens, then great, we can celebrate and create. Until then, however, if you choose not to participate and create actively, you'll be waiting for Godot and making excuses along the way. Create a wonderful week until our next Moment of Now. So that is a sample of the unfolding higher consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is broadcast weekly, and a transcript of this broadcast with all supporting links are published in the show summary on the CosmicVisionNews.com website. CVN can be followed on numerous social media websites, including Minds, Unseen, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, gently reminding you that it is now time to get off our collective butts, stop waiting, and begin actively contributing to the creation of the world and the ascension experience that we are claiming to want. Until our next Moment of Now, may you be guided and protected in your service to humanity and our planet for the highest good of all. Namaste.